Recording, please. All right, we're live.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'll call the meeting to order. Diane. Which item, please, Elizabeth?
Chair, we do a roll call. Lori Baldwin Sands here. Spurs,
Here.
Herbert,
Here.
Grant Jones sends regrets. McMillan,
Here.
Cribble,
Here.
Todd Noble sends regrets. Trousseau
Here.
and John Wilson.
Here.
And Chair, we have form.
Thank you very much. Want to do the audio next?
Sure, board members, staff, guests, and members of the public are reminded that the Full Authority Board Committee meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the authority's website along with the official written minutes. As such, comments and opinions expressed may be published, and any comments expressed by individual board members, guests, and the general public are their own and do not represent the opinions or comments of the full authority and or the KCC Board of Directors. The recorded video of the full authority meeting is not considered the official record of that meeting. The official record of the full authority meeting shall consist solely of the minutes approved by the full authority.
Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest with the agenda? So, forward. Seeing none, go to the minutes. Now the motion that the minutes of the September 20th, 2023 full authority meeting be approved. Moved by Sam, seconded by Sharon. Call please.
First,
Yes.
Herbert,
Yes.
McMillan,
Yes.
Cribble,
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
and Sands. Baldwin Sands.
Thank you. Yes.
That passes.
Thank you very much, everyone, and matters arising from the minutes. First, we have the media report. Mary Ann?
Yes, good morning. So just a little overview over the last month. We had our board tour in September and wanted to share our group shot. A busy season with the campgrounds closing, and I thought it would be nice to kind of share one of our social posts right before Thanksgiving. Staff were at Lake Whitaker and came across a little natural artwork left behind by one of our campers or visitors. So just couldn't resist sharing that.
Thank you. Project tracking is the next, and that's in it.
Yeah, so as Marianne mentioned, a busy end to the season in September. We hosted the Carolinian Forest Festival in collaboration with a number of other partners over at Springwater Conservation Area. 2,000 grade 6 and 7 students come out to that event. And you'll see in your packages that forwarded Betsy and the committee got some really glowing reviews of that festival this year. It's great to see the kids out there doing those hands-on activities. And they couldn't have hoped for a better week of weather out there. It was fabulous to see that happen again. Campgrounds did close for the season September 30th, and all the camper trailers are removed, the buildings are boarded up, and the staff will begin to winterize the campgrounds over the next month or so. Staff also led a community event with employees from Graham Scott Ends in the city of St. Thomas this past weekend to plant 150 potted shrubs and trees along Lake Margaret. And then there was the TV Tree Days events, volunteer planting as well on October 14th, with over 40 volunteers planting 300 potted trees around Waterworks Park. So again, just some great community initiatives that staff are always excited to talk about.
Thank you. Questions? Go ahead.
Not a question, just a comment. I probably could have should have commented. I just wanted to thank staff for an excellent tour that we had a couple of weeks ago on Friday. Lunch was particularly good. But no, it was great. It was great to see everything, and especially since we're dealing with the dam, top-notch stuff too. Nobody probably realized how many campgrounds you had and the condition we're in and all that stuff. So thank you, and my only comment.
Thank you for those comments. It's great. Anyone else? Thank you. We'll move forward then to the watershed conditions, Jennifer. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just quick for October, Lake Erie water levels are fluctuating with rain events and water courses fluctuating as well. Lake Erie is continuing its seasonal decline, even though water levels are still slightly above normal. We conducted our seasonal inspections and maintenance for the dam structures in the watershed. That just involves going checking, making sure that all the parts are working. And just as a nice fall end to the season, there's some colors that look good.
Questions or comments? Go ahead, please.
I just, reading through the stuff, I didn't know there was a dam at Lake Whitaker.
It's very small. It's like a meter high.
Whereabouts is it?
It's at the outlet of Lake Whitaker, just near the River Canton. It's kind of in the bush.
Okay,
It's just a small stop log with cement weir. And it controls the outlet to Lake Whitaker.
alright. Cause I spent a lot of time back there, I didn't know there was a dam. Must have to go.
I can show it to you.
Alright.
Any further questions? Sure. Thank you, and back to Conservation Ontario, Elizabeth, what's yours?
Grant Jones and I had the opportunity to attend the Conservation Ontario Council meeting on September 25th. The one agenda item that I'd like to raise to members' attention is just they did consider their budget and its levy to the CA. They were very keen to keep their levy low and accomplish that with coming in with an increased levy to the CA's 3.3%. For kettle, that only means about a $921 increase, so it's 2023 levels. So based on the pressures we're all facing, I think that was a fair increase and a fair 2% with us and a big asset.
And welcome to hear comments from the members. One with their hand up on screen. Thank you. Then I have recommendations that matters arising from A through D be received. Can I get a mover, please? Sharon?
Moved it, Herbert.
Jen, thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call please.
On the motion, Burrs,
Yes.
Herbert,
Yes.
McMillan,
Yes.
Cribble.
Yes.
Trudeau,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes,
and Baldwin Sands,
Yes,
and that motion passes.
thank you. Next is correspondence.
These pieces of correspondence were just included in the package as an FYI. The correspondence from ourselves was asking for the extension to continue our negotiations with the apportioning agreements. That was submitted, and I just received acknowledgement back, but no decision yet on whether or not that decision would be granted. But since that time, Central Elgin has passed their apportioning agreement. So the only municipality left would be the City of London, and I'm hoping that we get favorable news by the end of October.
Thank you.
Would it be favorable news, Jerry?
I'm more, I just don't know if it's going to be by end of October.
Thank you. We have a recommendation that the correspondence be received. Jerry, would you like to move that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. John, would you like to second that? Thank you. Any further questions or comments on correspondence? Seeing none, roll call please.
First,
Yes.
Herbert. Herbert,
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes.
McMillan.
Yes.
Cribble,
Yes.
Trudeau,
Yes.
Wilson,
yes,
Baldwin Sands,
Yes,
and that motion passes.
thank you. Our next item is the statement of revenue and expenses. Melissa, please.
This is the quarterly statements up till the end of September. I think everything is going on as per expected. I will note that we notice the Lake Whitaker and Dalewood revenues are very good again this year, so that's pleased to see and puts us in good standing for a positive year end as well.
Thank you. Questions from the members? Go ahead, Jerry.
I do have a few. So currently our revenues are at 97% of the entire budget, and I do understand that summers are the highest revenue month. But did we do any forecast, or are we looking in terms of because we are almost there, right? 97% with 3 months to go. So is there expectation that will actually our revenues increase the projections?
I'm sorry, what revenue item were you looking at? Just the.
Actually, total revenue, because we are at 97% with 3 months to go. So is there in terms of forecasting, does it look like we are gonna do more over budget?
Probably the real extent would be the Lake Whitaker and Dale campground. You're seeing the total revenue for their year, because they're not their year, but their season ends September 30th. So there'd be no more revenue coming in from those two items. I think the revenue is high as well, just because of an unexpected donation that we received in the amount of 200,000. So that's pushing that up as well. But there wouldn't be any significant more revenue that I'm not aware of that would be coming in over the next 3 months. Question.
But going back to it, so we are kind of like 145, we are about $90,000 for the last 3 months. So we certainly should reach it and potentially go over, right?
Correct.
Okay, and on the expense side, again, some significant great savings. And is it something that really was, is it something that's gonna hit us next year? That we postponed anything, or is this really gonna be the savings for this year with no expectations for following year?
Yeah, I think in terms of the campgrounds, we definitely did have savings in terms of expected salaries related to seasonal staff. That is mainly just due to not being able to find staff to fill those positions. So that is, a savings that we might not realize again next year. Simply because we didn't push to try and fill those positions as much as possible, and the preference would have been to fill those positions. So I would say that's a savings that we realized this year, but it's not sustainable in the future, and certainly not the preference of staff. I think there's other larger expenses that aren't reflected in this budget this year that probably are over projecting savings that we might have. So there's still some expenditures related to flood modeling that we're doing this year, as well as operations and some extra studies that we did at the dam. So I think we're on target this year, but I don't think there's no expenses from this year that are necessarily going to transfer to next year.
Okay, thank you. No more questions.
Thank you. Any further questions? Sure.
Just one on vehicle and equipment, does that reflect anything to do with purchase of a new vehicle, or is
No, this is just operating, so that just reflects the focus maintenance and gas.
with gas prices? Not like gas.
Yeah.
Thank you for the questions. Anything further from the members? Then I have a recommendation that the statements of revenue and expenses dated September 30th, 2023 be received. Can I get a mover, please? John, seconded, Sam? Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Roll call, please.
First,
Yes.
Herbert,
yes,
McMillan,
Yes,
Cribble,
Yes.
Trousseau,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Baldwin Sands.
Yes,
And that motion passes.
thank you. We'll move down to new business. First item is the Dalewood Dam Municipal Class Environmental Assessment. Jennifer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the board understands, we were working with the Dalewood Dam. It's an aging piece of infrastructure, about 100 years old. We all know it requires some extensive repairs to the spillways and wing walls. GD Valley was retained to prepare that options assessment to determine what the next step would be to manage that dam. And the engineering consultant prepared a presentation that you were all able to see last meeting. And it was great that the board was able to visit the dam during the tour and actually see what all those issues that we've been talking about in Olsen Spillway. So that was, I believe, really helpful for everyone to actually get a good visual of that. So the next step of process would be to initiate the municipal class environmental assessment process, and that's to gather public feedback on options that have been presented. All of the options, from do nothing to removal can be considered, but there was 3 options that were the most viable that was presented during that options assessment, looking at major rehabilitation, replacing the structure with reduced capacity, or removal, full decommissioning. Under the class EA process, those 3 options are Schedule B. And the municipal class process has 5 phases in it. And during that class B process, we have to do the first 2 steps. One is identify that issue, and the second is go to public consultation so that we can get feedback from the public on those options. And then if everything is fine, then we can skip to implementation and continue the process and start to work through the repairs or whatever is decided for the dam. So that is something that we're looking to do as the next step in the process. So what we need to do is we have to scope that process and include it in the next budget, in the 2024 budget. We are estimating that about $30,000 will be a reasonable budget that can be accommodated to do that process, and with hope that we can get support through WECI funding, and that's that 50-50 cost apportionment program that the province provides to conservation authorities for working with dam structures. So it would fall under that study category. Unfortunately, WECI funding is not guaranteed. It is a graded process that you have to go through. You have to apply for it. There's a limited amount of funds that are available. About $5 million is what the average has been. And all the CAs apply to that for repairs, studies, and that sort of thing. So it's not guaranteed, but it is something that we can apply for to support that municipal class EA process. So that's something that we're looking to do.
Answer a question there. What did you say, wacky or?
It's very WECI. It's the Water Erosion Control Infrastructure Program.
So it's just a program.
It is it's a cost share program that's 50% funding. So it's a great program for
Okay.
for all the CAs to use.
So another follow-on question here, and then I'll let you go, is like at the municipal level, we always ask for staff's opinion. What do you think? Do you have a preferred recommendation, or are you gonna wait till the process goes through? Like, obviously, I'm thinking, not speaking for the whole board, we'd like the dam to remain as is. I would, the staff have a preference that they're leaning towards.
Well, that's something that you have to kind of look at. It's the major talking point is what is the future for that dam? What do you see? Do you see the dam in place, or do you see the dam not in place? And then that kind of decides those final options, right?
So you're at the ground level, you know what your customers are saying.
And that's what that's what the municipal class process helps with that decision, because it allows for input and public input and consultation with partners and stakeholders into that decision. It's something that has to be
Okay.
discussed.
That step needs to be put in. Jerry, you had a question as well?
Yes, I did, just to pull up, also, this WACI fund, the $5 million for the province. In previous years, was it kind of always used up to 5 million that's throughout the province, or? I was just looking at what are our opportunities for classes.
So for WECI funding, $5 million is the general amount. It has been higher in some years, it has been lower in some years. Average, it's $5 million. It's always, I should say, it's usually spent to the limit. Occasionally, projects that were applied for and were successful in getting funding were unable to be completed, and then that money becomes available. It's complete, it's not guaranteed. Everyone has to apply at the same time in February. And those allocations are determined very quickly, like within a 2-week process, and you know exactly if you have received that money for those projects. But as repairs and safeties are usually given not priority necessarily, but 80% of that WECI funding usually goes to repairs or safety projects, and 20% of that money goes to studies. And it's all in a graded process. Your structure is given points based on the type of structure it is, where it is, all this information, and then that determines the grading as to which structure gets priority.
Is there an opportunity if this year wasn't all used up, even though it's such an effort at the timeline is February and it's 2 weeks? If this fund on provincial level hasn't been used up, is there an opportunity maybe to go back and say, we found out that it hasn't been used up, we need it? Is that?
There is, if they don't have enough call for projects, then they'll put out a notice saying we need more projects to apply for that funding. Just, yeah, so there may be opportunity, but usually the money is distributed.
Does it make sense to us to start this initiative and kind of approach province and say, hey, was it used up, or can we look it up if it was used up?
Their committee will let us know. They communicate quite well with the conservation authority. So for example, this past year, they were undersubscribed. So they had put out a request for more projects to be submitted, and dams that may not have always qualified to get money were able to get funding to do projects. So they put out a call that they need more subscribers to the applications.
And if I may, we have been building a very professional layered case in support of putting this project forward. And I commend staff for doing that.
Yeah, Chair, if I may, just to some of the points. So the point of today's discussion was just to point out next steps. We think from you know, a board level, as well as, you know, input from the engineers that we were dealing with, that going out through the environmental assessment process is a good step. It allows us to get that feedback from both from the public, but also the other stakeholders, such as the city of St. Thomas. I think this infrastructure, you'll find, my understanding from, you know, some of the comments from the public is they're looking for more recreational facilities within the city. This dam also ties into a network where there's a smaller dam further down that the city will be looking at in terms of maintenance. So there's a broader discussion I think that we have to have with the city and staff as we work through this process. Will be initiating and engaging the city in those discussions, but it does go back to Jen's original question. What is the intent of the dam? Do we want it? Do we not? If we do know that we want it for recreational purposes or otherwise, it comes down to at what price tag do we want it? And that's really where we need the city to come to the table and have those discussions with us. In terms of WECI, the benefit that, if anything, in terms of the board members could do for the authority and for other CAs at the time, is to remind your provincial representatives how important that WECI funding is. We're not the only conservation authority dealing with this problem right now. Most of the dams within the province are 100 years or older in varying states of conditions. And $5 million doesn't go a long way when you look at, you know, our dam and what we're looking at. So the province has been good about coming to the table so far with 5 million. I do think that that could be raised to help the CAs, but the other thing is that the fund is only operated on an annual basis. So your project, you need to have it in by February, you need to have it completed by March 31st. They don't allow funds to transfer between years. So when you're talking a larger project like this, it's very difficult to have design, tender, construction done in that time frame. A lot of the larger CAs have projects in the wings ready to go, but they need to straddle years. And so far that hasn't been allowed in this program, and that would be a big benefit to remind any provincial representatives that you're dealing with, is that yes, we need the money, we could use more money, But the ability to straddle years with some of these larger projects would be of great benefit.
And if I may add, under the WECI application process, we require municipal support, at least in a letter of support of to some degree. And proof of board support for the financial side. So that's something that we will ask for closer to that application date, should that move forward.
So just one question, Jennifer. In the grant application, would you be looking for funding to offset the 30,000 to evaluate? Or are you looking for eventually for the actual repairs or whatever?
We will.
Is it broken down or?
Yes, but yes, we will be making WECI applications for different parts of that project. So I anticipate for 2024, the next step is the municipal class environmental assessment, and that's something that we can also get WECI funding for.
Can you give me the acronym again?
Sure, it's Water Erosion Control and Infrastructure Program.
So I have a follow-up question.
Sure.
So based on that criteria, you gotta complete it in a year. Can we do this in a year? Or we go for two separate like, how are you gonna do that?
It would have to be a phased-in approach.
You can't do it in 1 year.
It would be difficult to do it.
Yeah.
That's why I think what staff is presenting you today is that we think it's valuable to go through that environmental assessment
Sure.
process. That, you know, roughly might take next year to do, so our next application to WECI would be the $30,000 that we're kind of earmarking for this process, and that would be initiated in 2024, and that gives us more time to build our financial war chest, work with the city of St. John to look at saying push for different pots of funding out there if it's possible, and build a case for, you know, a multi-year application to WECI as well to get us through the process. But once we decide what we're doing with the environmental assessment, you still have the design phase, you've got to decide. So this is not, we'll say it's not a quick fix, but it's going to be a multi-year process. And that's the other sense of this report, is that in the meantime, we continue to monitor the dam. We still have GD Valley engaged to do quarterly inspections for us. They just completed their last quarterly inspection on October 3rd. Again, the water levels were fairly low, so they got a good look at the spillway and the wing walls. There's no change on the upstream wing walls, downstream or upstream wing wall from the spillway. The north downstream wing wall, remember from the tour, is the one that's showing continued signs of deterioration, and they saw some additional signs. On a variety of those projects, they are recommending that we undertake, you know, this project in 1 to 5 years. Certainly, we know that we don't have funds to do it in a year, but we are looking at it in the next 4-year horizon regardless, and making this, you know, progressing through this process, taking those steps, but in the meantime, continuing to do those quarterly inspections, and that's valuable information in terms of the process as well. So some slight changes in the north downstream wing wall, but it's good to see that there was no changes in the spillway and the other wing walls. But again, the engineer says you will mostly see the largest change after the freeze thaw of the winter spring. That's when you're going to see the most of the changes within the concrete. So, but good to see those maybe just in the last quarter.
Okay, so this next year is the 30,000 assessment thing, but then we have to be ready to go. Looks like by 2025, there has to be a project teed up. I'm just talking off the top of my head looking at this. We don't seem to want to. Major rehab is 1.4 million, maybe 25 years. Removal is 1.3. So, you know, just throwing it out there. Based on what I saw, you want to keep the dam. So how do you do it? It's all about financing.
Then we gotta find the money.
Pardon me?
I said, then we have to find the money.
Oh, can we get that in minutes?
Thank you. We do have a recommendation on the floor, recommendation based on Dan with Dana. Dam Options Report, July 2023, that staff be directed to allocate the $30,000 that we were talking about in the 2024 budget to initiate the environmental assessment process in 2024. Can I get a mover for that? Sharon, second, Jerry. On the recommendation, is there any further questions or comments? Roll call, please.
First,
Yes.
Herbert,
yes,
McMillan,
Yes,
Cribble.
Yes,
Trudeau,
yes,
Wilson,
Yes,
and Baldwin Sands.
Yes. And the second recommendation, that the Dalewood Dam seasonal inspection conducted by GE Valley dated October the 3rd, 2023 be received. Can I get a mover for that?
Herbert move,
Jim, thank you. Any further questions or comments on the recommendation? Seeing none, calling the roll call, please.
First,
Yes.
Herbert,
yes,
McMillan,
yes,
Cribble.
yes,
Trudeau,
yes,
Wilson,
yes,
and Baldwin Sands.
Yes,
And that motion passes.
thank you. Next, we have the Dalewood Dam stop log operation. Jennifer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In recent years, we've looked at a variety of studies that we've done on the Dalewood Dam. Most recently, in 2019, we did the hazard potential classification that classifies the Dalewood Dam as low. As part of that study, it was determined that the Dalewood Dam cannot surpass the 100-year flood without overtopping the deck and the earth embankments unless all stop logs are lifted. So as a result of that, new lifting devices and stop logs were installed in 2021 as an economical solution to meet that freeboard in the passage of the inflow design flood. Staff retained True Consulting to prepare an engineering memo outlining recommendations for operating those stop logs now that we have the ability to operate them. And we also retained a North-South Environmental to complete an ecological investigation of the Dalewood Reservoir. Lifting the stop logs is a benefit to the operation of the dam. It helps to reduce the hydrostatic pressure on the dam. It's an aging infrastructure, so removing that pressure on the upstream side of the dam is definitely a benefit. It also allows the dam to pass those high flows. And it was determined through that engineering memo that most of those high flows, about 80%, occurred during those winter months between November and spring freshet. So changes to operating the dam, allowing those logs to be lifted during that time means that you're putting less pressure on the dam, making the dam able to surpass those flows, and reduces maintenance on the dam and extends that service life of the dam by making those changes to the operation. And as a result, True Consulting made the recommendation that those stop logs should be lifted between at the end of October and put back in just after spring freshet. As a desktop exercise, True Consulting was able to prepare maps of the Dalewood Dam using existing bathymetric survey data, so that's water depth data, to visualize what the reservoir might look like without the stop logs removed during the winter months. And you can see in this map the darker the solid line is what the water level is in the reservoir with the logs in place. And the dashed line is what the reservoir would look like with the logs removed. And this is a snapshot in time. So this would be like the day one. So you can see on the diagram where like there's a kind of a distinct between those lighter colored areas, but with water movement through the system, those would join up and you would still have flow from Kettle Creek over to the dam. But that's this kind of raster graph, it shows kind of the depth of water in the reservoir, and that dark red area is often an area that can see seasonal low water. You'd have exposed areas in the summer, and there isn't always water in that
Yes, sir.
area to begin with. And that was one of the as a best management practice, we went out with the ecological consultant yesterday to do an overview of the reservoir and look for any ecological red flags. We had an opportunity to see things. Nothing of note or concern popped up during that survey. And that is the recommendation is that those logs, we operate the dam and lift those logs during winter runs.
Effective immediately.
Effective immediately.
Questions or comments for Jen? And if I may, we have a recommendation that the report from True Consulting on the Dealwood Dam Stop Log Operation dated October 10th, 2023 be approved. And further, that based on the advice provided, staff be directed to make the necessary changes to the operations of the Dealwood Dam effective immediately. Any further questions or comments? Can I get a move for that, please? Jim, would you like to move that?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
just have my
Seconder,
mute back on.
Frank, thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none? Roll call, please.
Burrs,
Yes.
Herbert,
Yes,
McMillan,
Yes,
Prebble, Trudeau,
yes,
Wilson,
Yes,
and Baldwin Sands.
Yes,
And that motion passes.
thank you. And the next item is budget planning, Elizabeth and others. Go ahead, Leah.
So staff has been diligently working through the budget process. I feel like a broken record, but basically we're sitting at 7.5 in 24-25, and then going down to 5 in those final 2 years of the 4-year cycle. We've separated out our program areas into 5 key deliverables, each with its own strategic objective, and then looked at the priorities. We previously reviewed those, and then what we've done over the summer is come up with work plans for each one of those deliverables. We've also been looking at cost saving measures, as well as measurable results of how we are meeting or exceeding our expectations in each one of those deliverables. Due to budget constraints, I think we came to you earlier in June with some of the things that we hope to put in the 2024-2027 budget. Things that have been left out just because of the constraints and trying to keep ourselves within that 7.5% and 5%. We've left out enhancements to the Avon property, so that's the area that you saw just to the left as we emerge out of the Whitaker campground. So it used to be the Peacekeeper Park area. We wouldn't be looking at any enhancements there unless we got funding support or were able to find some additional revenue. And enhanced passive recreation opportunities on state land. So that's major enhancements to our existing trail network we would be looking at over the next budget period. So the document that you have in front of you is meant to be a living document. We'll continue to update it and refine it throughout the annual budget processes. But I just wanted to highlight it's a new document that we put in place just to strategically, I guess, direct ourselves. So you see the key deliverables are highlighted. There's 5 of them. Natural hazard program is one of them. And then under each one of those titles is the goal for that deliverable. The priorities are then listed, and then we get down into the work plan. And the work plan, there's the standard deliverables for each one of those. Those are our, every day we have to do type of things. Then we've separated out what we're looking at, trying to accomplish, or pressure points that we might have in the 2024-2027 budget in the next column. The third column I wanted to highlight is that we're working very hard to look at cost saving measures throughout the next 4-year period. This can include things like fee increases or funding opportunities. And then the last segment is the measurable results for each one of those deliverables. And we've done is identified how staff are meeting or exceeding objectives or expectations within each one of those program areas. And those will be updated and reported back to the members as well. So again, this is what the document we've been working on to build the London budget, as well as finalize our plans for the 2024-2027 budget. A living document that we anticipate updating and bringing back to you throughout the next 4 years. So the recommendation that I have was that the work plan be approved and used to finalize the 2024-2027 budget.
Recommendation is on the floor. Can I get a move? Thank you, Frank. Seconded by Sam. Any further questions before the call?
Question?
Okay, Jim and then Jerry. Go ahead,
Yes,
Jerry.
thank you. On the first slide, you talk about two things that they're not going to do. How serious is if those two things aren't done? Yes, the Avalon property enhancements and the opportunities on CA land. How serious is that if it's not done? Is there a big concern?
No, not from staff. Certainly, there's not a big concern. I think in terms of those two things, our priority would be to continue to look at enhancement possibilities on the Avon property. That is a possible revenue generation. We're going to do as much as we can without impacting the budget. So staff will be bringing a report for shortly in November about small things that we can do out there now, like taking special event bookings, it's similar to how we do at Dame Patterson. So, you know, possibly an antique show or something like that, that doesn't need a lot of infrastructure, but needs grass space to basically hold their event. So I think there's small revenue opportunities that we can do. But in terms of a full scale enhancement that we could possibly look at in terms of, you know, a campground expansion and having some other type of revenue generation out there, the capital reserves aren't in place now to do that. So we would have to be planning for that. We need to come up, you know, with a management plan, what we would do there, business case. Those are all things that we would undertake as staff have time and as staff generate or find funding opportunities to do that. So not a real concern, Jim, but something that, you know, we hope to do. We just don't think that we should be passing that on to municipal levy or robbing the coffers right now, the capital reserves when we have other more significant pressures.
Thank you very much, Rose. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Jim. Jerry, go ahead, please.
A couple of things, and I greatly appreciate the cost saving measures at Matrix as it is at 4 years. Is there a plan kind of to do on annual basis, kind of what's called implementation plan that includes the tactics, the timeframes, etc. Do we do that usually kind of on the annual basis so we know what's kind of the game plan for the following 12 months?
I think that will be outlined, you know, kind of up here in a broad scale with 2027 budget, but as we narrow it down to just talking about the 2024, we'll give you that type of game plan for the 12-month period. And I think it's updated, you know, on a monthly basis through those project trackings, whether we're keeping track on time. And the goal of this one as well, they'll be bringing back kind of a more consolidated report that we'll also share with your member municipalities of what our goals and our objectives are within the 2024 budget. But having that background that we've got this plan for 2024, but we're well researched into where we're going as well.
Okay, thank you for that. And last thing is, I noticed on the in our document we have 26 and 27 4%, and I noticed here we have in the presentation 5%. So are we going with the? I would imagine we are going with 5%, right?
Yes, to take a look at that, Jerry.
Just if just to adjust it, it's actually the under report summary, the first slide. Sorry, first paragraph.
That's my typo, should be 5.
Okay, thank you.
Apologies.
Thank you for that clarity. And I also would like to say too, that for me, it gives me talking points when people ask the question. So they're very topical and very working in the title, that's ours. So it's very helpful for me, taking those talking points back to council. Anything further? So we do have the recommendation on the floor. Any further questions? Calling the question then, please.
Bird,
Yes.
Herbert,
Yes.
McMillan,
Yes.
Cribble.
Yes.
Trudeau,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Baldwin Sands,
Yes.
and that motion passes.
Capital budget projections.
That's a separate report. So as we've discussed this morning, the dam poses a significant pressure over the next 4 years, in terms of capital. So I've asked staff to basically evaluate our fleet requirements and look at capital needs. I call them needs rather than wants, and ask them to look at, the budget in that manner. And through that process, we've come up with a priority listing of capital over the next 4 years as well. So wants or lower priority capital that was removed from the list included administration, renovation, or rebuild. That was talked about, gosh, 3-4 years ago, I think. The board was considering it at that time. That was before we had a full understanding of what was happening at the Dalewood Dam. We've talked about the Avon property enhancements, and that we've taken out of our priority listing any vehicle or equipment purchases that would take us beyond the current fleet that we have. So the decision was maintain the fleet that we have, not expanding. So based on this analysis, we only probably have, and I'm always conservative, but we only have about 150,000 right now to contribute to any Dalewood Dam project in about 2025. Capital levy or funding would be required to undertake, the $2 million project. That's what I'm estimating right now in the 2025 year. So just based on, those scenarios, typically what I say is we try to push about $30,000 to reserves. Some years we might push more because we've had an excellent year in the campgrounds. Other years might be less, but an average of about $30,000 a year was keeping us being able to replenish our capital as it came up for renewal. I'm suggesting that based on the scenarios we're looking over the next 40 years, we need to push at least 40,000 to maintain an average reserve balance of 294,000 over the next 4 years. And that's with contemplating that someone else comes to the table to support the Dalewood Dam.
Can I ask you a question here?
Yeah.
So is that what we have in reserves, 150,000 to apply to the dam, or is that? When you said 150, is that what it means? That's what we have currently, and we're pushing 30,000 a year to that reserve fund, correct?
I don't have a reserve fund specifically set up for the Dalewood Dam. What we have is we maintain, it's 4 reserves, one's for building, one's for infrastructure, one's for vehicle, is for.
Do you segregate them all, or is it in one pot?
No, I do segregate them all, but it doesn't prevent me, say, if we know we're not going to have a building expense, when I would come back to the board, and I'll be looking at that over the next little bit, is based on projections, maybe we've got too much in the building reserve because we were saving up for possible renovation in the basement. And we need to push more of that to the infrastructure reserve. So we'll look at those balances.
Okay.
But just in terms of planned capital and stuff, like I said, we did a priority listing. Vehicle replacement is based on a comprehensive analysis of, we look at our fleet in terms of mileage, hours used, the life and the maintenance. So we're not necessarily replacing our vehicles when they reach book end of life. We kind of look at, can we get another year out of them? Can we get another 2 years out of them? But we are finding there's probably 3 vehicles that we definitely need to look at in this 4-year cycle. So you can see basically a vehicle a year over 2024, 2025, 2026. And that's taking in consideration the next report where we're looking at a year-end purchase this year. We are finding that vehicles are increasing in price, and before where we would easily get a truck vehicle for under 40, we're looking 60,000-70,000 that we're projecting for replacements of those, so that's, you know, not entirely unexpected, but you know, the previous 5-year budget, we weren't thinking that we were gonna be spending that type of money on vehicles in this cycle.
All right, so do you have a formal asset management plan, sort of? Is that what it
Yes,
is?
I would say that this would cover it, and the staff do an asset analysis of both our vehicle and equipment based on an established protocol.
Okay.
And we're building this in and projecting what those reserves will end up being. Computer replacement is also a pressure. We've put in a budget annually for the next couple of years. And again, this comes up in the year-end report. The computers that we have need to be updated to Windows 11, and what we're finding is that not necessarily a software update, it's actually a hardware update that we have to do to support that system. That needs to be completed by 2025, so we've worked that into this these schedules as well. The dam project, you can see here is that we're handling the $30,000 in 2024 from our own coffers. With support from WECI, so half of it coming from WECI. But again, when we're looking at the actual capital project, right now we've got 150, just based on, that's my worst case scenario. I would hope that we would have more to support that, and staff will be working to try to keep our capital purchase below what we're actually projecting, so that we can push more towards the dam. But on a $2 million project, we're looking at, you know, 1.7 basically coming from outside sources than ours right now. So these are the reserves, Franco. That's the total that we have in our capital reserves for 2022, and you can see the current breakdown. These are again our projections based on those expenses, as well as our, I call it balancing our municipal position. So the push that we get from our amortization and then our spend and how that works out. So you can see the balance in 2023. What I draw your attention to is based on that chart and what I'm projecting over the next 5 years. You can see the impact that it has in 2025, and then starting the amortization rates and stuff that we're looking at 2026. It has a big impact to our reserves that I think we have to prepare for, whether we get funding for the dam or not. So you know, pushing $40,000 annually toward that helps to even that out. Of course, looking ahead with what I have worked out right now, I'm not comfortable with only 67 in reserves in 2026. So there's more additional work that needs to be done there to try to smooth that out. And a big part of that will be when we have successful years, pushing as much as we can to those reserves, so that the only thing that we're going to municipalities for is the dam, that we don't have to go to for anything else, that we continue to support our own capital regeneration with our own funds.
So just like if I hear around it again, you're estimating 2 million to do the dam. We have 150,000 to go from reserves towards that pot. So we have a funding shortfall of $1,850,000 in 2025. And going into 2025, based on this public environmental assessment, public consultation process.
Yeah.
I won't make any presumption on what's going to be recommended. I think we all have a feel for that, but we got to be ready to come out and apply and go at it. Correct? That's what they're recommending. So not that I have any solutions to anything, but how do we start filling the $1,850,000 shortfall where? And I don't know, levies are one thing. I can't see where you're going to levy out the whole cost of it to the municipalities. Do you? Can we talk frankly about that? I don't know what you might consider levying. You don't even have to answer that today, but anyway, those are just comments. So there's no answers.
There's no answers right now. Definitely, I have to do some additional homework. Lending, funding, talking with the city. The city is probably the most benefiting municipality when you think of the dam as supporting recreation within its community. So that really is the first conversation that I think that we need to have with the city about whatever option comes out of it.
You mean the city of St. Thomas?
City of St.
Yeah,
Thomas.
okay, yeah, that would be big for them. Yeah, no other comments, but I think we as a board have to be ready to, and you do, to tackle that, get on with it. I think it's gonna be, you should explore borrowing. Like we as municipalities borrow through province of Ontario, there's a fund that you can tap, and maybe, what are the other conservation authorities, when you talk with them? They all have to be groping with the same problem, right? Revenue shortfalls or not enough revenue to meet aging infrastructure. They don't have any magic either. They're just all concerned and what are we gonna do? I guess the other question is, do we notice that things are leveling off cost wise now? Have we reached our peak? You know, things were constantly going up when you mentioned the price of vehicles. I mean, you know, everywhere you go to, cost is up. Is it still spiraling, do you sense, or is it leveling off, or do you have a sense of that? You can maybe not comment on that, probably shouldn't have brought it up, it's too big a question, but, yeah, okay. I'm just talking out loud here, but that's my mindset when I go into this. We got a shortfall, how are we gonna fill that pot? And it's gotta be over 2 years, so that's a problem with WECI.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's a little unrealistic for that fund on some of these big projects, not to span 2 years. Okay,
Through the chair to Frank, I think those are the conversations that I can start to have with Conservation Ontario. They're looking for good examples where, you know, the WECI program isn't fitting the reality of what we see on the landscape today. So I think this is an excellent example of that I can take to them and they can use in terms of their advocacy for additional funds as well.
what we could do is, we could support you as municipalities if you write out to us and say, here's the issue with this fund. It's not enough money. Maybe would they bump it by 50% to 7.5? I don't know. And also, could you please lobby for straddling years? If you send a letter out to us, like all of us could speak to our councils, we should support this by writing a letter to our MPP. Who's that? The Ministry of Environment? No, our local one, we don't even have a local MPP right now.
MPP?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a local MPP.
Who is it? Monty McDonough resigned.
No, Rob Hall, isn't he?
No, he didn't move. He's not our
He
local.
didn't move.
No, he's, you're talking at the minister level. We,
Rob Flaxar.
yeah, but not his resigned. He hasn't been replaced yet. There might be a bunch.
No, he hasn't been.
All right.
There will be a bylaw.
So we could all write to, in support of this, to our members of provincial parliament and say, we all support this based on what we're seeing at the conservation authorities tape. It might help. I don't know.
You should every opportunity.
Yeah, Chair, I like that idea and with the support of the members, maybe I'll spend some time with Conservation Ontario and drafting a letter up and bring it back for your consideration next month.
Yeah, I could also talk on our municipality, we're touched by 5 conservation authorities, right? All of them have a part in Middlesex, and I'm presuming maybe City of London too, but we have 5 of them. I can bring that up in council. All of us on our council are on a board of a conservation authority. So I could tell them, when you go back to your conservation authorities and ask, a letter will come forward from Kettle Creek. You could use that as an example and bring it up in your own conservation authorities. And the various members of those conservation authority boards could then write to their council to support this. At least we can get something going. So I think I have a council meeting tonight. There's some conservation authority stuff on here, and I'll bring that up. Okay.
Great.
Requesting staff direction. Or letter of support.
So basically, right now, what I'm asking for is just, I think it was receive that report.
Thank you. And that recommendation, on that recommendation, we get a mover. Don? Sharon?
Yes, Commissioner, thank you.
Or question, please?
Bird,
Yes.
Herbert,
Yes. Yes,
McMillan,
Yes,
Prince.
Yes.
So
excuse me.
Wilson.
Yes.
Baldwin Sands.
Yes,
And that motion passes.
thank you. And now we're moving on to the next item, please, which is the year-end.
Yeah, so there, still talking with capital, there was a couple of year-end capital purchases that we're asking the board to support today. So we did have a budget of 26,000 for server and computer replacements, was approved as part of the 2023 capital budget. But we did have an unexpected computer replacement come up at Galewood. This computer controls the hydrometers. So it is required to be replaced. It's shown some functional issues over the summer. So staff are requesting that $4,000 be added to that budget to undertake to finish the computer replacements and add in that Galewood computer in those replacements this year. We need it in place for the camping season next year, so it would be beneficial to have it in place by the end of this year. And according to our vehicle replacement strategies, 2 vehicles were slated for replacement in 2023. However, due to budget constraints and unknowns around the Galewood Dam at the time, we only included budget in 2023 for 1 vehicle to be replaced, with the hopes that we could extend the life of that vehicle for some time. It hobbled its way to the end of the camping season with blessings, and then parked at the back of the shop at the end of the season. So we are asking the board's permission to proceed with that purchase and replace that vehicle this year. The staff have done their homework, retained 3 quotes, and they actually located a 2023 Ram 1500 tradesman on the lot in Tillsonburg for a price of $41,700 plus taxes, which I think is a very good price in today's market. The other benefit is that it's on the lot ready to go. And that's a big benefit for staff's, I'd say, stress levels, rather than waiting till February, March when the 2024 budget is approved and then having fear A, not getting a good price on a truck, or B, not having it on the lot ready to go for the camping season. And this is 1 vehicle that's needed. So while I'm budgeted, securing the vehicle and these computer purchases is a benefit, and I feel confident that we can accommodate it within the capital budget and our current reserve structures, and certainly helps alleviate a little bit of the stress over the next 4 years. So the recommendation is that staff be directed to increase the computer replacement capital budget by $4,000 to undertake required computer purchases in 2023. And that staff be authorized to purchase a work truck using an asset capital budget of $50,000.
Thank you. Questions or comments?
I have a
Question, Herbert?
Thank you. Go ahead, Jim. Sure.
Thank you. I'm just curious what happens to the 2011 truck. Do you keep it and still use it? Do you trade it in, or do you put it up for sale?
John,
Yeah, I can respond to that, Jim. Currently, that truck has got some significant wear and tear. And as Elizabeth mentioned, we parked it at the end of the season because we were having transmission issues, and we do know that we've got a cost of $5,000.
Yeah.
So more than likely that truck is scrapped at this point. This is, and just to add to that, this is one of the trucks that we didn't put on the slot to replace at the end of the capital asset end of life. It's one due to its uses. We chose to ride it out until the end of the vehicle's true life, and it's there. So this truck will more than likely go to scrap. Typically, though, we would trade them in or put them in Gov Deals auctions to recoup some revenue from them, but I believe this one will go to scrap.
Okay, follow-up question, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Jim.
I understand over the years, and I don't know if this is still being done, that the high schools will take some of these beat up old trucks and use them to work on, and they give you a tax rebate on it, so you can use it for tax. I don't know if that's something you would look at or don't know anything about it, but I was under the impression that program was still in place. But anyway, it was just an FYI.
Thank you for those comments, Jen. Sharon?
I am only just kind of amazed that you can actually get it for 50 grand.
I think when we did the search and we found it, that emphasized the rush to see if we could try and secure it, and the dealership we've been discussing with was gracious enough to hold it for us until a decision was made today. So we have it held for us. I think is there. If not, then we'll put it back out on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Further questions? I do have a quick one. Is this a used truck or new? It was a 2023 year.
Yeah.
Is there a map?
No, it's a brand new truck, so there's very few mileage on it. I think the savings and the cost is that it's a tradesman, so it's a base model work truck. It's a quad cab and it's not 4-wheel-drive. But in terms of the needs where we're allocating that truck to, it meets the needs that we have. So the only other thing I would note is it's very similar to the truck we acquired earlier this year. So we were successful in finding a very similar truck for 46 with the 23 budget money we had this year, and this one's very similar to that one, so we'll have a paired truck.
So is the one that you're replacing, that one, is it a 2-wheel drive as well?
Yes.
Could be weather transmissions.
Yeah. The truck that this is replacing in the campground, they're not necessarily workhorse. Very terrible. So totally itself, we have.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, no question? Yeah.
Actually, I don't believe I have a mover or seconder.
My
I
apologies.
did, I
Sarah, didn't you?
write it down.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon.
First,
Yes.
Herbert,
Yes.
McMillan.
Yes.
Purple.
Yes.
Trudeau,
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes.
Baldwin Sands.
Yes,
And that motion passes.
thank you. The next item. Over planning and regulations, committee report, Joe.
Thank you, Chair. Just again, looking for receipt of the advanced report that was in your packages, just summarizing the planning approvals and permits issued by staff since the last meeting. Happy to answer any questions, but we're just looking for receipt of the information.
Thank you. Just for review of the information, Jerry, would you like to move that?
Yes.
Thank you, Frank, would you like to second?
Sure, I'll second it.
On the motion, Burrs,
Yes.
Herbert,
Yes.
McMillan.
Yes.
Cribble.
Yes.
Trudeau,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Baldwin Sands,
Yes.
and that motion passes.
We now need to go into closed session. I get a mover to go into closed session, please. Karen? John? Thank you. Going into close, question? We'll call the-
No conditions, Bill. Sorry, no conditions on the property?
Burrs,
Yes,
Herbert,
I'll talk to you.
Yes.
McMillan,
Yes.
Yes.
Cribble,
Yes.
Trudeau.
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Baldwin Sands,
Yes.
and we're going into closed session at 11:07.
You.